chesslessons.net. I'm going to be looking at a game between Alexander Goldin and Igor Efimov in 1982. And Goldin just went totally nuts. So starting with d4, and now b6 is going to be the queen's Indian defense, a3, so that the knight can develop to c3 without worrying about bishop b4, any kind of Nimzo Indian style lines. And this is pretty much just standard opening theory. I mean, this was 1982, but the same principles still today. So black is going to just try to develop normally. Bishop b5 here is just kind of an in-between move, just to induce black to play c6 and then bring the bishop back. So it's going to be, usually it just transposes into normal lines. Black is going to play c5 just the same, but white likes to throw it in maybe to try to mix them up a little bit. So with castles, white is starting to want to eye that h7 square. And so now knight takes c3. It looks kind of strange maybe at first sight because it's going to be allowing white to take with a pawn towards the center and strengthen his d4 square. But the knight doesn't really have anywhere else to go. And so now with c5, black is going to try to challenge and chip away at white's strong center. So e4, trying to get in a little space. And now I just feel like white has a very comfortable position. By the way that black has played the line, I feel like black's main difficulty is where to put the b8 knight. So Efimov tries to solve it another way. He plays knight c6, and he plays a pretty active line. Now with d5 is a nice pawn break. Queen can't take d5 because of bishop h7 check. So knight a5, and now c4 sort of makes sense, trying to lock it down, and white's going to be trying to open up these bishops. If bishop f6, a nice rook lift to bring the rook in the game, for example. So instead, Efimov tries the immediate b5, which I like. It's very active, and he's trying to just completely go nuts in the game. Now, maybe it was preferable to play something like bishop f6 and then maybe g6 later. So c4, queen c2, and I definitely think g6 here was the move. Because Goldin just, his response is too accurate. He plays queen to f5, which seems like a kind of a strange move, but all he's got to do is get the queen to h5 or to h3, and he's going to have some real nasty discover checks against the black king. For example, queen takes d5, just queen to h3, and you know any attempts bishop c8 is just going to get mated on the spot. So queen to f5 is definitely a really very instructive maneuver there by Goldin. So now queen to h5, but Efimov figures out the best way to defend, simply bishop to g4, deflecting the white queen. So exchange of pawns. Black's got some good pawns on the queen side, but his king is also a little bit exposed. So rook to e1. Goldin's got to play for activity here. He's got to play real fast to go after black. So bishop f6 definitely makes sense. And Goldin continues bishop g5. So a really nice move. If queen takes d5, probably queen h4 check. Either way you look at it, I mean, it's just not going to work. So the queen is kind of tied down to d8. So he tries king to h7 to reduce the effectiveness of a potential queen h4 check. And now a4 by Goldin. So Goldin is just really chipping away. I mean, the knight on c4 is loose. The bishop on f6 is kind of loose. And black's rooks aren't really doing anything. a6 not going to work. Just gets killed. So if a6 doesn't work, I mean, the knight on c4 is going to be loose. So Efimov tries knight d6, and now pawn takes. Here, maybe black, I don't know. I mean, this is a very tough position already. Maybe he could try to cash out with something like queen c8 here, and maybe he could work out a worse ending, queen c8, maybe queen h4, and the idea would be queen to f5. But he takes the pawn, and now Goldin just busts out rook a6, and all of a sudden white's pieces are perfectly coordinated. So with the last couple moves, a3, a4, taking b5. White's activated his rook, and now he's got everything just flowing perfectly, and black's got some serious problems here. So bishop takes g5, Maybe he could have tried knight d6, but I think Goldin was probably planning queen h4. And kind of out of nowhere, white has just got so much pressure on black's position on his king. So instead he tried trading pieces. Definitely makes sense when you're being attacked. And queen takes d5 here. Maybe it was preferable to play queen c8, although I think queen h4 is just going to kill it anyway. Or you know, the idea would be queen to c8, and if queen to h4, for example, queen f5. Just an idea. Queen f5 is a good defensive resource. But maybe, I mean, Goldin probably could have tried something like this. Seems to work out well for white. So black's in some serious problems. So he tries queen takes d5. Makes sense. Snatch a pawn. Might as well. Goldin busts up rook h6. So that was kind of nuts. Didn't really expect that too much. And now white has got some serious threats on the h-file. So queen d3 makes sense. Trying to defend along this diagonal is definitely what black needs to be trying to do. Knight h7 was a good move. White's queen has got to stay on the g-file so that if black takes the rook, he's got knight e6 with the discover check. So he can't, you know, queen h4 just loses. Doesn't work. So maybe, yeah, I mean, knight h7 just makes sense. You know, throwing another piece into the attack, threatening to win an exchange, and also knight f6 would just be mate. So f5 here, I think Efimov overestimated his position. He thought he was going to figure out how to defend. I think he had to kind of cash in and take the knight. In this position, the rook and the knight, white should win, most likely. But there's no guarantees. And the direct rook lift doesn't seem to work because white's king is kind of weak. So maybe, you know, who knows, something like this. It seems like black has a reasonable chance to hold. Probably, yeah, he's got a reasonable chance to hold. So I think here, Efimov, he just had to cash out. Instead, he tried f5. And queen g6, definitely logical. And now here, queen d2 just lost on the spot. So maybe, you know, I was looking, trying to figure out a way, but white has a killer attack. If queen d7, knight g5, and that's going to be all she wrote. Rook h8 with queen h7 mate to follow. I looked at queen d6 for a second, but just white just gets an easily won endgame with knight takes f8 and rook takes. And in this position, this is a really easy win for white. It's going to pick off this pawn probably, then probably the a pawn, and then the pawns are just going to roll. So queen d6 doesn't work. So he tried queen d2. I think black's already lost here, but queen d6 may be the best try. I don't know. Queen d2, and now some nice moves by Goldin to seal the deal. He plays queen e6. If king h8, knight g5 check. Really nice check. Blocks the queen on this diagonal. And, yeah, I mean, that's not going to work out too well. So king h8 doesn't work. So he tried rook f7, queen e8, just killing it. And now after knight f6 check, Efimov threw in the towel. He had enough. I mean, it's, you know, pawn takes and that's mate. So really a fantastic game by Goldin. He played the opening extremely well. He seized the initiative and never looked back. Sacked a pawn and just went straight after black's king with perfect coordination and harmony with his pieces. So a very impressive game. So this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and thanks for tuning in.